Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X __ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. And I'm already looking forward to the weekend. Saturday's going to be awesome. There's a bunch of really good college football games on. We've got Shehan Jeyarajuh of CBS Sports. He is set to join the show at 10:20. Can't wait to have him on. He's always good, very much in the know with everything going on. Very honest as well, which we appreciate. And I want to start today with the Indiana Hoosiers. And Fernando Mendoza currently being the favorites to win the Heisman Trophy. At plus 850, it was plus 800. He dropped a little bit there. He was previously followed by Oklahoma's starting quarterback, John Mateer. Absolutely electric. He gets hurt, though. He's going to miss some time, so he's plummeted in terms of the odds. So hopefully you didn't bet John Mateer to win the Heisman. He's followed, actually, by Dante Moore, the starting quarterback at Oregon. If you haven't seen Oregon play, you'll see him in 2 weeks when they play Indiana and give Indiana all that they can handle and then some. But currently, Indiana starting quarterback Fernando Mendoza is the favorite to win the Heisman. When was the last time that we could say that about an Indiana football player? Like, as good as Michael Penix Jr. was when he was playing down in Bloomington, I don't think he was ever the favorite to win the Heisman like John Mateer is right now. Or excuse me, like Fernando Mendoza is right now. Sorry. Big John Mateer fan over here. My bad. Now, here's the thing. I don't think he's going to win the Heisman. Sorry, Fernando. I'm not a believer. I think that it's because they're going to be unable to go win on the road at Oregon or at Penn State. Now, if he can find a way to win one of them, especially if he wins the Penn State game, then he will be more than capable of winning the award because he's undoubtedly going to have the numbers for it. Like the guy's already thrown for dang near 1,000 yards. He's 25 yards away. He's thrown 14 touchdowns through the Hoosiers' first 4 games. No interceptions. Only been sacked 3 times. He's completing 77% of his passes, which is incredible. And then you throw in the fact that he's averaging 10 yards per pass attempt. It's pretty incredible, the numbers that he's put up to start the season. And we haven't even seen his legs yet. That was a big part of the draw for him at Cal. It was not only his ability to throw the football at clearly an incredibly high level, but also his ability to run the football. He has 2 rushing touchdowns on top of his 14 passing touchdowns on the year. It has opened up a whole extra layer of the Indiana offense. Because last year, we all love Curtis Rourke. Indiana isn't Indiana last year without Curtis Rourke and his ability to come in from Ohio and run this RPO-based offense and throw the football on time and on target. There's a reason why Curtis Rourke was drafted by the 49ers. Because he's a good player. With that being said, Fernando Mendoza is significantly more athletic than Curtis Rourke was last year. And we haven't even gotten to see that aspect of the Indiana offense yet because, thankfully, they haven't had to use it. When you blow out teams, you don't have to run your quarterback, which is a really, really nice thing. So when they go on the road to Oregon and they go on the road to Penn State, I do think we'll start to see that aspect of Fernando Mendoza's game. Okay, but there are so many bad defenses on this Indiana schedule that Mendoza is going to put up the necessary numbers. Obviously, Iowa, very good defense. Okay, so maybe Mendoza struggles for the first time this year, this Saturday. I don't think that's going to happen just because the talent around Mendoza is really high. The offensive line's better. The receivers are good. Love Omar Cooper Jr., just physical wide, just a physical receiver. Indiana can run the football at a high level. So I don't think it starts this week. When they go to Oregon, that game will be tough. They have a good defense. Same goes for Penn State. But every other defense that they play, it should lead to big numbers for Fernando Mendoza when they host Michigan State, who's definitely better than they were last year, but still not on the same level as Indiana is right now. When they host UCLA, blowout. Okay, like that's definitely coming. Maryland's undefeated right now. Maryland's 4-0. That being said, they haven't played anyone good. Their best wins over Wisconsin, who's just not a very good team. So that should still be a game, though, where Mendoza can put up some big numbers. Wisconsin and Purdue definitely better than they were last year, but come on, certainly I don't have to explain why Mendoza should have a big game against them. And then you've got Wisconsin, same thing with them, like just not a very good team. Luke Fickell probably going to get fired here at some point, either during the season or at the very end of the season. So there's more than enough bad defenses for Fernando Mendoza to put up really big numbers, and obviously you need really big numbers to win the Heisman. Okay, the only thing that I'm worried about in terms of Mendoza's Heisman hopes is whether or not he's going to have his quote-unquote Heisman moment. Like when you look at previous winners, there's a game, a drive, a play that you can point to and be like, yeah, that was their Heisman moment. Travis Hunter didn't have one last year, but he was so unique playing both sides of the football full time that he didn't really need one, right? So when you look around college football, who are the other guys that could, push Mendoza for this award, right? Like when you go to the odds, Mendoza, obviously the favorite. Dante Moore at Oregon at plus 1,100. Very talented, very good player. Has gotten off to just a really nice start at Oregon. Then again, kind of hard to be a bad quarterback at Oregon with all of that talent surrounding him. Just an incredibly good and talented young player. And look, they've got a big game this Saturday. They're playing at Penn State. So Dante Moore Heisman moment. Maybe it's loading. They play USC later in the year, who's a really good team. He's going to have the opportunity to put up the numbers and the opportunity to make the play, the Heisman moment. Undoubtedly, Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. He's the best player in college football. So he's a guy. John Mateer was the guy on this list that I was concerned about, because when you get to play in the Red River rivalry and you get to play at Oklahoma, period, like you're going to have those opportunities. Obviously, he's hurt, so he's not going to win it. Carson Beck makes a ton of sense since Miami's going to have a real chance to win the ACC. Thomas Castellanos is a guy that people are not talking about enough. If you want like a dark horse who could maybe win the Heisman, he's a guy who you should probably bet on at plus 2,500. He's the starting quarterback at Florida State. He's got a signature win already, beating Alabama the way that he did. He's got awesome numbers. Florida State's good. Going to have a chance to win the ACC. I like Fernando Mendoza. It looks like he's going to be a first-round pick. Like, that's just the reality of it. Like, you watch him against Illinois, I think the thing that jumps out the most with Mendoza is just the poise in the pocket. Like, he just never looked rushed. Part of that is the Illinois pass rush never really got home. But there was just this consistent confidence from him, right? Just like this consistent, like even if they do pressure me, like I'm going to make the throw. I'm going to escape the pocket and buy myself some time. So he's just the poise to me. That was the most impressive part of watching him play against a real opponent for the first time with Illinois. So he's going to be a first-round pick. He's going to put up good numbers. But I'm just not convinced that he's going to get his signature win this season. I don't think they win in 2 weeks on the road against Oregon. I think they are much more likely, November 8th, to go to Penn State and win. I have a bit of a holdup with Penn State, and I think it's a really fair question. And Shehan Jeyarajuh of CBS Sports, he's going to join the show here in about 10 minutes, and I'm going to ask him this question because, like I said, I think it's a good question. When you look at Penn State, the argument for them to be great this year is, they're bringing back everyone from last year. You know, they're returning like 16 of 22 starters, and they've got the best backfield in the country, and the offensive line's going to be good, and all this kind of stuff that has proven to be true so far. We're going to get a real idea of how good they are on Saturday when they play host to Oregon. But my question is, like with Ohio State last year, they brought back a lot of their great players. And even though they lost Marvin Harrison Jr., they brought in Jeremiah Smith, who was, one of the 3 best receivers in college football last year. Right? And then, they brought back a bunch of offensive linemen and running backs, and, Will Howard transferred in. But like the best players on the Ohio State defense all came back, and they added Caleb Downs, younger brother of Josh Downs, right? But like Jack Sawyer was still there, and JT Tuimoloau was still there, and like all those guys remained, and they were all dominant, a part of a really good Ohio State team the year prior. Penn State this year, compared to last year, they lost the 2 best players on their team. In Abdul Carter, who was the number 3 overall pick, currently playing linebacker for the New York Giants, was just dominant coming off the edge for Penn State last year. And obviously, they also lost their best offensive player, Tyler Warren. He was the only guy for them who could consistently get open and make plays in the passing game. They obviously don't have that anymore. So like that is the question about Penn State. So I think Indiana is much more likely to go on the road later in the year and beat them, as opposed to an Oregon team that brought in a lot of new players, but are really good. Dante Moore, an absolute stud. Okay, they lost their starting running back. He's now playing for the 49ers, or he's trying to play for the 49ers. He got hurt. What a surprise. I'm convinced that if you put on a 49ers jersey, you're just doomed to get hurt. But it's new running backs, it's new wide receivers, but it's still really good. And obviously, like on defense, like it's Dan Lanning. The defense is always going to be good, but I have significantly more questions about Penn State than I do Oregon, which is weird given all the returners. So Indiana in a really good spot to compete, to maybe, just maybe, play in the Big Ten title game. Obviously, Michigan and Ohio State, they're both going to have something to say about that. But if they can split these 2 games, either beat Oregon and lose to Penn State or the inverse, like they're going to have a say potentially in who wins the Big Ten title this season. They are so much better than last year. A large part of it does have to do with Fernando Mendoza just being a better quarterback than Curtis Rourke was. That is not a shot at Curtis Rourke. It's just the reality of who the Indiana Hoosiers are this year. Ohio State, obviously replacing a lot, still a great, great team. Penn State bringing a lot of guys back, but lost important players. So I'm very intrigued to kind of see how the Big Ten shakes out this year and where the Hoosiers kind of land in all of it. It's the reality of it, and I can't wait. Hopefully Mendoza wins the Heisman. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully they beat Oregon in 2 weeks. Hopefully they beat Penn State November 8th on the road to what are going to be really, really tough games. But first, they have to beat Iowa, which is a very possible thing for them to do. They should beat Iowa. They're 7.5-point favorites. I understand that playing on the road in college football is very difficult. Good news for Indiana, the game's not at night. Night games in college football, no matter where you're going, are significantly tougher than 3:30 games. That's the reality of it, especially in the Big Ten and in the SEC, where people really care about college football. So I like them to go on the road and win. They probably cover the 7.5 points, but 2 weeks, they're going to play Oregon, and we're going to get to see them play against the absolute top end of college football, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Shehan Jeyarajuh of CBS Sports, just who does an excellent job covering college football. He is set to join the show coming up here in about 4 minutes. We're obviously going to talk IU, their dominant win over their dominant win over Illinois on Saturday, and we're going to look ahead a little bit to kind of how they're going to match up with the rest of the Big Ten as the year goes on. So Shehan Jeyarajuh of CBS Sports, he's joining the show here in about 4 minutes.
It may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith. Follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM. I'm joined now from CBS Sports, Shehan Jeyarajuh, who does a great job of covering college football. He's one of my favorite guys to talk football with because he doesn't remind me of how Arkansas just fumbles the football away consistently at the end of games. Shehan, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. And sorry about those hogs.
Dude, I can't, man. It's brutal. But thankfully, I'm not there because if I was there, it'd just be 100 times worse. I'm in Indiana where we're really good at football. It's amazing what Coach Cignetti has done in just a really short amount of time. You live in Dallas, and I'm just kind of curious, how do the people in Texas feel about how between college football and the NFL, Indiana kind of being the new standard?
The capital of football, many people are saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting, right? I mean, obviously, we had interesting expectations about the Hoosiers coming into the year, but I think that game last week was kind of the one where people looked up and said, oh, I was a big fan of Fernando Mendoza at Cal. I thought that he was a fantastic addition by Indiana. And frankly, I mean, he had opportunities to go to a number of big-time programs, and he decided to go to Indiana. He saw what they did with Curtis Rourke. And in that game against Illinois, I mean, he was just absolutely phenomenal. But the story of this team has, I think, really been the defense, too. I mean, they're just playing at such a high level. So I think that was a game that really put the nation on notice, and it's pretty fun to watch them go.
It really is, and I walked away from the game just immediately being like, okay, they're clearly better than they were last year. I was really impressed by both the offensive and defensive lines. I just feel like that's where they've improved the most from last year to this year. What do you think about the fronts for IU?
Yeah, I mean, I think they allowed Illinois, 2 rushing yards, I think, net in that game. Like, that's crazy stuff. That's crazy stuff. And I was looking too earlier, and I mean, Indiana at this point has 4 200-yard rushers through the first couple games of the year. Like, this is not normal stuff. I know that the opponents through the first 3 games are what they are, but Illinois is a good opponent, and they treated them the exact same way that they did Indiana State or Kennesaw State. So I agree. I think that this team is playing at such a high level in the trenches. I mean, and look, there was a lot of questions, certainly from me, about when some of those James Madison guys cycled out of the program after last year. Would they be able to develop new ones? I think they've done a really good job of it, and this team definitely looks like a force to be reckoned with.
Joined by Shehan Jeyarajuh, who covers college football for CBS Sports, does an excellent job writing. You can even see him on TV sometimes. He does an excellent job. You mentioned, Indiana being able to go out into the portal and bring in Mendoza. He's the second most popular quarterback in the state of Indiana right now. You mentioned that you really liked him at Cal. When I watched him on Saturday night, his poise was kind of the biggest thing that jumped out to me. Just seemed like he was never really in any sort of a hurry. When you were watching him at Cal and so far this year at IU, what are some of the traits that you like on him the most?
Yeah, I mean, I love what you bring up there, his poise, because I think that the irony of him coming from Cal to Indiana is that at Cal, like, he didn't play behind a great offensive line. He was under pressure quite a bit. And so for him now to be at Indiana, I mean, he just knows how to maneuver the pocket at such a high level. And you you've seen that through the first couple games of the year. I think the other thing too is his accuracy is just really, really good. He has a very good arm. I don't think that he's just winning with arm talent. He's winning intellectually. He's winning with his head. He's making the right decisions. He's making the right pre-snap reads. I think that it's benefited him that he's worked with some really interesting quarterback coaches over the years. Jake Spavital early on at Cal, then moving, of course, to Indiana this year. And so I think that he's just kind of the complete package. And talking to people around college football in the NFL, like, this is not just a, hey, that's a really nice story. This is a, hey, this is maybe a first round pick. And I'll tell you what, I was a huge fan of Curtis Rourke last year, and he ended up being drafted into the NFL. I mean, I hope that it's not disrespectful to Rourke to say that I think that they upgraded at the quarterback position.
Yeah, they did. And you can just tell, the one thing about Mendoza that we haven't really even seen here at Indiana yet, because he hasn't had to do this. He's very athletic. He moves so much better than Rourke does. But when you're beating, teams 63-10 and they're not really generating any pressure, I don't think that's an aspect of his game we haven't really gotten to see yet. And with Rourke last year, not a statue, but kind of, so I'm really excited about what he brings with his legs. I'll be interested to see if he has to use them at all against Iowa this week, but I know in 2 weeks when they go on the road to Oregon, we'll probably see him then, because Oregon's been so good this year. But I do want to ask you about Oregon, but before I do that, how good is Illinois? Because the pessimist in me was they won 63-10. I know Illinois there was a lot of high expectations for them. They bring back 17 guys from a really good team last year, but how good are they?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously they came into the game ranked number 9. Frankly, for me, I've been a little more down on Illinois even coming into the year than I'd say some other people are. But this is a top 25 to 30 caliber team. This is a team that is quite good. I don't think that they're elite. I think that they're quite good. And when you beat a quite good team like that, especially a team that's pretty good in the trenches, which Illinois is, I think that still means a whole lot. So look, unfortunately, I feel like it's going to fall into a little bit of the category of, Indiana didn't necessarily beat a quality opponent, but I think that this was a good quality opponent. This was a good first test. And I mean, when you take a test like this and you score the way that they did and dominate them on both sides, I think that means a whole lot. So I think that, going on the road against Iowa, that's going to be the first great defense that they play. I think that's going to be huge. And then when you get the next week, you get a really elite team going on the road to Oregon. So these next 2 weeks, I think we're going to learn, okay, you know what? This team is clearly very, very good. I mean, if the season ended today, I think this team is very clearly in the college football playoff. They're going to have to handle their business well against Oregon and Penn State, both road games, tougher than what they had last year. But if they can play well, I think even a 10-2 team clearly deserves to be in that spot.
I completely agree, especially with that win over Illinois, who's, like you said, good team, just not quite great. But as you said, they have to go beat Iowa first. How good is Iowa? I know I was really excited when they landed Gronowski, the transfer quarterback from South Dakota State. He's been a little underwhelming to start the year, but they did beat Rutgers 38-28 this last Saturday. How good is Iowa?
Yeah, I think that they're a similar quality team to Illinois, I'd say, but I will say also that I think that their matchups line up a little bit better versus Indiana than Illinois did, especially Illinois, being without one of their top cornerbacks. I think that was a huge deal. Well, I was going to be a much bigger challenge in pass defense. They always are, of course, but this is a really good pass defense unit. The other thing to know is that, like you said, I mean, I've been frankly very disappointed in Mark Gronowski's struggles because I was a big fan of his at South Dakota State. But what this team does have is they have right now, according to PFF, the best offensive line in college football by a wide margin. They actually rank number 1 in both pass block grade and run block grade. So this is going to be a very legitimate test, I think, of some key things for Indiana. One, is this defensive line able to keep winning against one of the best units in the country? 2, is Fernando Mendoza going to be able to keep winning against the secondary that can definitely hang with what Indiana brings to the table? And three, how does Indiana handle this moment? So again, I think that Indiana's going to win. I think they'll pull away. But even though I think that they're a similar quality team to Illinois, I think they're going to be able to cause some problems that I'm excited to see Indiana work through.
Okay, sounds good. Because that's kind of how I felt going into the Illinois game, and then the game happened. And I was like, I guess I'm going to watch something else. So hopefully this game is a little bit better. Once again, joined by Shehan Jeyarajuh of CBS Sports, who does a great job covering college football. You can read all the stuff over at cbssports.com. So as you said, in 2 weeks, they're going to go on the road to play Oregon, but Oregon plays Penn State on Saturday night. I am so excited for this game. It's a great slate on Saturday. And I find Penn State interesting because, you know, a lot of people have talked about how they're bringing back all these guys from last year and how they were really good last year, and it's the same quarterback and all this kind of stuff. And Clemson's 1-3, and they, you know, brought back a lot of guys. Illinois, you know, just got beat 63-10 on Saturday after bringing back a whole bunch of guys. And my question about Penn State is they lose arguably their best offensive player in Tyler Warren to the NFL, and they lose their best defensive player, Abdul Carter, to the NFL. I haven't watched a ton of Penn State this year just because their opponents haven't been great. How have they gone about trying to replace those two guys?
Yeah, it's a team effort. They don't have individual guys that are anywhere near that level. It's more trying to build it through, I guess, sort of collective effort. The big thing for Penn State, with replacing Warren, they've been a lot more wide receiver heavy in the passing game. They added two really good players, Kyron Hudson from USC and Trevor Pena from Syracuse, to really give them more threat at wide receiver. And they really like Luke Reynolds at tight end. He's somebody who was, I believe, a class of 2024 recruit, 5-star player, was kind of viewed as the next guy in line behind Tyler Warren, and he's played up to that to this point. On the defensive side of the ball, again, it's collective, right? I think that Denai Dennis-Sutton has really been their standout on the defensive line. But I also will say I don't think that this is quite as good a defensive unit as it was last year. It's still very, very good, but it's not quite as good. And the other thing that you have to say through the first couple games is they have done an incredible job in the running game, just running all over teams with their fantastic running backs, Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. But this has not been a team that's played with a lot of rhythm to this point. They've kind of just gone out there, bully ball teams, and gone home. We haven't seen the passing game opened up. We haven't seen the defense. They played well, but they haven't done anything special to this point. Their schedule to this point is, even easier, frankly, than Indiana's first 3 games. So this is kind of the first moment that we learn anything about Penn State, and especially with Drew Aller being a little inconsistent, this is a big spot for him to come out and prove it.
I'm so excited for this game because I think it's such an interesting matchup between this Penn State team who's bringing like everybody back and Oregon, who only returns 5 starters from last year, who's looked really dominant, but their schedule hasn't been super tough either. What do you like about Oregon, and what are you concerned about with them?
Well, I think the thing I like most about them is that they are just coming at you in waves at every single position. Like, they brought over a running back, Mekhi Hughes from Tulane, who had 1,400 yards and 20 touchdowns last year, and he's 5th on their depth chart right now. Like, they just have so many guys that they can turn to at basically every position. I think that Dante Moore at quarterback has just, again, he's had a lot of time because the offensive line has played really well, but he is playing the game on easy mode right now. He is just going out there and dominating people. But again, they're averaging 6.7 yards per carry. They already have 1,000 yards on the ground through 4 games. Defensively, which I haven't even gotten to, Mateo Uiagalelei, just a monster coming off the edge. They're really, really good on the back end. Again, the competition is what it is, but Oregon has kind of been a perfect football team through the first 4 games of the year. And, like you said, not the greatest competition, but they have played 2 games against power conference opponents and Oregon State, who isn't a bad team. And they've made those teams all look essentially like FCS teams through the first 4 games of the year. So I'm very excited about this Oregon team. I definitely was selling them a little bit before the year, but when you just look at the depth of talent that they have, I think it's going to give them a chance to not just win every game, but run away with a whole lot of games as well.
Joined by Shehan Jeyarajuh, who covers college football over at CBSSports.com. Head over there and you can read all of his stuff. You can follow him on X as well at Shehan Jeyarajuh. He's a great follow. It's a loaded slate on Saturday. Which game are you most looking forward to?
Well, I think the Penn State-Oregon game goes without saying, of course. But, I'm also going to be keeping a really, really close eye on Alabama-Georgia. And, again, we'll see if it ends up, I guess you could say, being a meaningful matchup at year's end. But this is like such a huge prove-it spot for Alabama. They lose week 1 against Florida State. But, they've quietly been pretty good since then. I think that Ty Simpson, after he kind of got those first game jitters out, has just played at a much higher level. It seems like they've locked in. And Kalen DeBoer tends to have something special for his big games. I mean, you think about the Georgia game last year when they go up, whatever it was, 21-0 before Georgia even catches their breath. And this is a Georgia defense that I don't think is anywhere near as special as it's been in years past. Still very good, of course, but just not that level of special. So very excited for that one. I'm keeping half an eye on Ohio State, Washington, obviously the CBS game this week. Washington through the first couple games has been really good, and Damon Williams might be look, I would have said that Fernando Mendoza before last week. Now everybody's talking about him, but now Damon Williams might be the best quarterback that nobody's talking about. Just been absolutely dominant through the first couple weeks of the year. This offense, I think, should be able to hang with anybody, and that includes an Ohio State defense that looks like the best in the country to this point. So I think that's a game also I'll be keeping a close eye on. And one also I'll throw out for the Friday slate, TCU at Arizona State. It's pretty rare the past couple of years that we've gotten quality weekday games. This is one of the best weekday games that you're going to see in a little while. I think the winner of this kind of joins Texas Tech on the inside track to the Big 12 title game.
Yeah, Arizona State, a very interesting team, another team who brought a lot of guys back. I think the underrated game I'm looking at is Tennessee and Mississippi State. I love Mississippi State. They just score a bunch of points. Tennessee's defense doesn't look great. Obviously, they're scoring a bunch of points. I think that game is going to be a lot of fun. And just to kind of add to your point about Coach DeBoer at Alabama, always having something for these big games. When they lost to Florida State, everyone was talking about his record against unranked teams. And my thing with Coach DeBoer and why I think he's going to be fine at Alabama, he's undefeated against Dan Lanning, Coach Sarkisian, and Kirby Smart as well. So I am very intrigued by that game. I don't think that the loss to Florida State's a big deal because Florida State's a really good team, which leads me to the ACC. What happened to Clemson?
It's a tough question, right? Because I think that the past couple of years, again, there's been conversation about are you paying players fast enough? Are you adding players through the portal fast enough? And that, frankly, is not an excuse this year. They are paying players. They did get good players through the portal. I think you can make a really good case, at least top 22, the most talented roster in college football. They have multiple players on the defensive line who expect to be draft picks. It's not a personnel issue anymore. And I think they do have some structural stuff, right? Their running game is a big issue. I think their offensive line has only been okay. But this team just isn't responding right now. I know that when you look at Clemson over the past couple of years, even when they haven't been great, they've always played up to their potential. And this is the first time that has not been the case. And, honestly, I'd be fascinated when Dabo Swinney's season is done, to ask him what do you think went wrong? Because, again, it feels like they have good players at most of their key position groups. It feels like they have, good coaches coaching different position groups, and it just has not responded to this point. So I don't think they've handled the moment very well. And again, this is the first time since probably 2020 that they've had very legitimate national championship expectations. And I think that you're seeing it crumble before your eyes.
I don't think it'll happen, but Dabo Swinney in his I don't think it was his last press conference. Maybe it was after the loss to Georgia Tech. Either way, where he lists out, he's like, we've won the ACC 8 of the last 10 years. And if they don't want to win anymore, then they can fire me. which I don't think it's a good idea to ever dare your employer to fire you. How likely is it that Clemson lets him go?
I think that there's no chance. So here's what I'll say, right? I think that there's two pieces of this. One, I think you want to see how he responds to adversity, because last week he's right? Like Clemson has won 8 of the last 10 titles. They've won 10 games all these years. Okay, great. Well, now when you're 1-3, that's not bad for Clemson. That's just bad, right? And losing to Syracuse, that's just bad. So I think that he has handled that moment better. Like, I think that he's been more introspective and responsive in a way that I think is critical. And then the other thing too is that I think that you have seen him change and grow over the past couple of years. Again, you see him start to use the transfer portal. You start to see him use NIL. So I think that he's been less reluctant to change than, let's make the comparison to a coach like Mike Gundy, who frankly was truly brought in kicking and screaming this year. But I think the other thing too is that I think that it has not gotten to the point over the last couple of years where it's bad enough that you can clearly do better. Whoever you hire next, you could go and hire, anybody short of Kirby Smart or Ryan Day, and you're probably downgrading at that position. So I think that he's earned the right to try to figure it out. I don't think this thing is so broken that it's impossible to fix. Now, again, the next year or two, I think, will be critical. And that's, I think, more when you start having these conversations, if things go real south the next couple of years. But I think he's earned the right to dig his way out of the hole. And again, I don't think this program is anywhere near as far away as a program like Oklahoma State.
Yeah, Oklahoma State, I don't even want to talk about them. They're so bad. Joined by Shehan Jeyarajuh, talking a little college football. Shehan does a great job covering college football for CBS. You can go read his stuff over at cbssports.com. Last thing for you. We have some Notre Dame fans in the area. They start out 0-2, and then people are like, they're done. They can't make the playoff. I think that's ridiculous, just given how good they looked in those games. The rest of the schedule's pretty manageable. Obviously, they still have USC left, who looks really good. If Notre Dame wins out, can they make the playoff?
They can, but I think it's going to be really hard. And the reason that I say that is because at this point, their only remaining ranked game is against USC. And, just frankly, I don't know if USC is going to continue to be a ranked team throughout the season. I think the fact that Boise State's taken a step back is tough for them. I think the fact that Syracuse has taken a step back and is now without their quarterback is tough. I think the biggest issue for them is there are just so few prove-it games left on the schedule. I think, frankly, it's almost, I think they're very likely to go 10-2. I don't think that just going 10-2 will be enough. I think they have to be incredibly dominant in those games. I think they probably need some help. You make the comparison last year to them losing to Northern Illinois in week 2, but one, they beat Texas A&M to start the year in their big ranked game. And two, that was still only a one-loss team. I think a two-loss team has a lot less wiggle room to work with. So I don't think that it's completely over, but I do think that they're going to need some help. I don't think they control their own destiny anymore.
So what would be the difference between Notre Dame's 10-2 and Indiana's 10-2 if they were to lose to Penn State and Oregon? Because earlier you made it sound like even if Indiana, plays Penn State and Oregon close and they lose, they can still get in.
Well, I think it's a couple things. One, I think the level of dominance for Indiana is going to be something that matters. I think that again, it's not great differences, but I think Illinois and Iowa are going to be better teams than frankly what Notre Dame's seeing on their schedule, outside of maybe USC. But no, I think what you say is fair, and same deal, right? You need to obviously go out and play well, I think, in those Oregon and Penn State games, but it's just, again, I think that if you take away the top two teams on both these schedules, I think that the other 10 games, Indiana's schedule is a little more interesting. They have a few more opportunities, I think, to go out and do something. For Notre Dame, again, just running through real quick, right? Arkansas, who's not very good, Boise State, who's struggling, NC State. It's just a lot of teams that I don't think move the needle very much for people. And even if you want to look at that Purdue game this past week, I mean, they only won 56-30. Like, they put up a lot of points, but their defense has some big issues. They haven't had a game, frankly, where they've looked on both sides of the ball as good as Indiana in their first 4 games.
That is totally fair, especially the schedule thing. Like, they really needed Arkansas to start 4-0. That didn't happen. And so, that's totally fair. I lied, Shehan. Last thing for real this time. You're in Dallas, and I always permit myself one personal question whenever you come on, because I just think that you're a really smart guy. Any chance Rhett Lashley leaves SMU for the Arkansas job if it comes open?
I think it's going to be a conversation. For people who don't know, Rhett Lashley is from Northwest Arkansas. He came up with Gus Malzahn. I believe Gus Malzahn was like his high school coach, actually, interestingly enough. So there's a lot of ties to that area. It's home for him. But SMU is also a great situation right now. Obviously, the amount of money that they're putting in, the success that they've had, I think that, he and I know for a fact he and his family really like being in Dallas as well. So, and it's also not that far from home too. So I think it definitely will be a conversation. I think it's the sort of thing where if Arkansas decides day one, we're putting everything that we have, John Calipari style, you could call it, into trying to get Rhett Lashley there. I think it's possible. It's not guaranteed, but I think it's very much possible. If he's their even second choice, I don't think it's a conversation.
That makes sense. Shehan, thanks for your time, man. You were great as always.
Thank you so much for having me.
Shehan Jeyarajuh, you can check him out on X at Shehan Jeyarajuh. He is an excellent follow. You can read all the stuff over at cbssports.com. He loves college football. You can feel it whenever he talks, and he's obviously a very, very smart guy as well. I love the Colts right now. They're rolling. They're playing really, really good football. Their division, it's theirs for the taking because the Titans are bad. The Texans have no hope. The Jags are 2-1, but it hasn't looked great. My thoughts on the AFC South in 4 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X, _ Jonathan Smith. Follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app. And if you want a little bit more from me, you can go check out the My Take Is YouTube channel as well. The Colts, they're set to play the Rams on Sunday, a team that played the Texans week 1 and beat them 14-9. I think this is going to be a really good test for the Colts. They are the best team that the Colts have played so far. The Los Angeles Rams have legitimate Super Bowl aspirations. They have the quarterback in Matthew Stafford. They can run the football. Okay, they have good weapons on the outside between Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. The pass rush is lethal. Their best corner got hurt. Don't know if he's going to be back for the Colts game, but they've got some questions at corner. But aside from that, you have to like a lot about this Rams defense. So it's a road game against a really good team that once again has hopes to win the Super Bowl. That is the reality of it. And I can't wait. Can't wait to watch the game. Part of this because I get to watch Matthew Stafford play football, and I love watching that guy sling the good old pigskin around a little bit. So I am just very intrigued by it. This is a really good measuring stick game for the Colts. Like if they're able to go on the road to LA and win the game, then that means that this is a team that could exceed everybody's expectations and have like real legitimate Super Bowl hopes. Like that's what it would mean to me if they went on the road and they beat the Rams. It's like, okay, this isn't just a team that is going to win a bad division. This isn't a team that can maybe win a playoff game. If they're able to go on the road to the Rams and win that football game, then it means, okay, maybe they can win 2 playoff games. Maybe they could get to the AFC title game. And if you get to that point, then, anything can happen because all of those teams are really good that reach that point. But they have to win that game. I'm not convinced that they will. I haven't looked at the line, but I would assume that the Colts are underdogs. But I have no doubt that the Colts are going to win the AFC South just because of how bad this division is. We saw how bad the Titans were. The Texans are 0-3. The Jaguars are 2-1. But they don't really look great. My thoughts on the AFC South in about 5 minutes.
Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show. You're on Indy Sports Ticket, hour number 2, getting underway. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X, _ Jonathan Smith, to follow me there and watch the show there. Indy Sports Ticket app as well in 1430 AM. No matter how you're listening, it's appreciated because there's many places to get your sports talk entertainment. So very, very thankful that you're picking me. AFC South, it is right there for the Colts. They should absolutely, barring any injuries, win this division. They absolutely should. The Houston Texans were the runaway favorite to win the division before the year started. They are 0-3. It's the reality of it. They are 0-3, and they look awful. Their offensive line, terrible. Amongst the worst in the NFL. Maybe it's the worst in the NFL. I don't think they could block me. It's that's where I'm at with them. Right? Like the Houston Texans greatly miss Laramie Tunsil. They've played 3 games. C.J. Stroud has been sacked 8 times. He's thrown 2 touchdown passes, 3 interceptions. They just have so many issues. They can't protect C.J. Stroud. They can't run the football. Nick Chubb barely has 100 rushing yards through 3 games, and he's their leading rusher. So what's changed? Because the offensive line for them wasn't very good last year. It just wasn't. The offensive line for the Texans last year was bad, but they had the weapons to make up for it. Nico Collins, obviously. Tank Dell, really good player. John Mechie, Stephon Diggs, those first 8 games before he got hurt. Robert Woods. They could all get open pretty quickly. And now, Nico Collins is the only guy left from that group. Tank Dell's hurt. John Mechie's playing for Philly. Stephon Diggs is playing in New England. I don't know where Robert Woods is. Okay, like Nico Collins is the only guy for Houston who can get open. So there's a bad offensive line and a lack of weapons. Dalton Schultz is their second leading receiver with 96 receiving yards through 3 games. For reference, Nico Collins had 104 receiving yards in their 1 game against the Jacksonville Jaguars alone. Now, Christian Kirk finally healthy. He played against Jacksonville. Maybe he can give them a little bit of a boost, but there's just not a ton of hope there offensively for the Houston Texans. Now, the hope for Houston, if there even is any, with that awful offense. And by the way, I just want to point this out. I don't have the exact numbers. I need to go back and find them, but I don't think this is a coincidence at all. So C.J. Stroud comes out his rookie year and he balls out. Just balls out. And, wins a playoff game and people are like, C.J. Stroud, that guy's next up. And then last year, he gets off to a really nice start. And then they play Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. And they win, and Caleb has a really rough game. And when the game's over, you can see C.J. Stroud trying to give Caleb Williams advice. Like C.J. Stroud just has everything in the NFL figured out, like he's been in the league for a decade. And since that game, the wheels have fallen off of the Houston Texans offense. And I don't think that it's a coincidence at all. C.J. Stroud thought he had the league figured out. He has his rookie year, plays really well, and comes out and then that offseason, he just goes on tour with Micah Parsons. Goes on, all these different podcasts, and he's calling himself a top 5 quarterback after his rookie year, which is just absurd. And then he comes out week 1 and they play the Colts and they win 29-27. CJ Stroud has a really nice day, throws for 234 yards and, just was kind of feeling himself a little bit. 2 touchdowns, no picks, 24 of 32 passing. Just a really, really impressive week 1. And it's like, all right, CJ Stroud's here to stay. And then week 2, they play Chicago, and he has another good game. Throws for 260 yards. They win the game 19-13. And then after that, it's been not very good from CJ Stroud. Right now, he's had some good games here and there, but the consistency level just kind of fell off. And I find it incredibly funny that, he has these moments where he's like, yeah, I got it. It's all me. I'm so good at football. And now his team is 0-3, and he's struggling. He threw for 188 yards and their loss to the Rams. And then they lost to Tampa Bay, where he threw for 207 yards. And then they lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars, where he only threw for 204 yards. They have failed to score 21 points in any of their games. They lost the first game 14-9. They lost their second game 20-19. So excuse me, they failed to break 20 in their first 3 games this year. And then they lost Sunday to Jacksonville 17-10. And CJ Stroud threw not 1 but 2 interceptions. They are just not very good, and nothing makes me happier. Okay, now I will say there is a path for them to win games because their defense is legitimately very good. Very good, right? They hold the Rams to 14 points. They hold the Buccaneers to only 20 points, and then they hold the Jacksonville Jaguars to only 17 points. And I get it, it's the Jags, but the Jags scored 26 points week 1, 27 points week 2, and then only 17 points week 3. Okay, so that Texans defense is real, and the way for them to win games is going to be to win games like 20-13 or something like that, where their defense forces a couple of turnovers, and then the Houston Texans offense finds a way to score off of those. They should beat the Titans this next week. Then their schedule, man, their schedule's brutal. So they play the Titans, so they should be 1-3. And then they play at the Ravens. It's probably a loss. They then have their bye week. And then they're at the Seattle Seahawks. That's probably a loss. Then they get the 49ers and Broncos at home. Yeah, they're not winning either one of those games either. We could look up, and the Houston Texans could legitimately be 1-7. And I just think that'd be really funny. So the Houston Texans shouldn't be much concern to the Indianapolis Colts as of right now. The Jags are 2-1. And that is the name of the game in the NFL. It's winning football games. They should be 3-0, but that game against Cincinnati was just weird. And they're currently a game behind the Colts, the Jacksonville Jaguars are. They opened the season with a win over a bad Panthers team, lost a weird game to Cincinnati, and then they just beat the Houston Texans at home 17-10 on Sunday. I don't know how to feel about Jacksonville because I do think that they're going to be okay. The issue for Jacksonville is the pitiful start that Trevor Lawrence has gotten off to. Okay, that's the holdup with the Jags right now. Through 3 games, Trevor Lawrence is only completing 56% of his passes. He's only averaging about 6 yards per attempt. He's thrown for 670 yards, so that's about 220 yards per game. He's thrown 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, only been sacked 3 times, and that's it. That is where the Jacksonville Jaguars offense is at right now. Okay? Liam Cohen is a smart offensive coach. And there's a large part of me that thinks that he helps Trevor Lawrence get this figured out. Because the step for the Jags is really simple. Trevor Lawrence just has to stop turning the football over. I mean, despite Trevor Lawrence's rough start, they're 14th in the NFL in points per game. They're 5th in rushing yards per game, and they're 6th in yards per rush. When you can run the football, you can win games, even with an iffy quarterback. If you can run the football, which Jacksonville has done a really good job of to start the season. Okay, if they can just get Trevor Lawrence to stop turning the football over, then they'll be a tough team to beat. That's such a large part of why Daniel Jones has come over to Indianapolis and be really good. All right, he's just stopped turning the football over. It's amazing what happens to offenses when you just don't give the football to the other team. You start winning games, the offense tends to score a few more points, the defense doesn't give up as many points. Trevor Lawrence, like just take a note from Daniel Jones. Stop turning the football over. As soon as Jacksonville can do that, then they'll be fine. Okay, who do they play this week? I don't know if they have a tough game or not. This week, they're at San Francisco. And that sounds like a daunting game. You know, San Francisco 3-0. But there's San Francisco still very banged up. Nick Bosa, torn ACL. Brock Purdy should be back despite having some turf toe stuff. Brandon Ayuk's not back yet. Christian McCaffrey is still healthy somehow. Trent Williams looks old. So very winnable game for Jacksonville on Sunday if they can find a way to not turn the football over, because I like the run game. It's been very productive for Jacksonville. I like their defense. They lead the league in takeaways with 9 through 3 games. They have a good pass rush between Tarek Armstead and Josh Hines-Allen and Trevon Walker, right? Like those 3 guys can really get after the passer. Jordan Lewis, Travis Hunter, and Tyson Campbell have all gotten off to good starts playing corner. So, you know, Brandon Strange has emerged as a really good tight end. Brian Thomas Jr. has gotten off to a slow start, but everyone understands how dynamic he is after his rookie year. Travis Hunter, solid receiver. So they have a good defense. They have guys who can rush the passer. They have guys on the outside who are weapons, who can catch the football. They're running it well. The offensive line has been good. Trevor Lawrence has only been pressured on 9% of his dropbacks so far this year. He just has to stop turning the ball over. If he does that, then the Jaguars become a tough team to beat. The Titans, we saw them play Sunday. Certainly, I don't have to explain to you why the Colts don't have to be worried about the team that they just beat 41-20. And I can't wait to watch the Colts play on Sunday. I can't wait to watch Jacksonville play on Sunday. The Texans, who do they play Sunday? The Texans are playing, that's right, they're playing the Titans on Sunday, so they're probably going to be 1-3, but Jacksonville needs to win Sunday to keep pace with the Colts, because when you play teams that are banged up, even if they're good, like you have to take advantage of that. And Jacksonville needs to take advantage of that game against the Niners, because their schedule after that game, this next month for them is really tough. They're at the Niners. They get the Chiefs at home. They get the Seahawks at home. And then they get the Rams overseas in London. So, like, that's a really tough upcoming month for them. The Texans have a really tough upcoming month, really longer than a month. Titans, no big deal. And then it's at the Ravens, their bye week, at Seattle, San Francisco, and then Denver. Like that's their next 5 games are not easy in the slightest. And then with the Colts, I think they have the toughest month of their schedule coming up, starting this week, going on the road to LA. Which that's going to be a nice little test for them, because the Rams are really, really good. And then after that, they get the Raiders at home, relatively tough game. Cardinals at home, that'll be a tough game. And then they're at the Chargers. So I think we're going to have a really good idea of who's going to win the AFC South over these next, 4 to 6 games, or 4 to 6 weeks, because the 3 teams that might be able to win it, even though the Texans obviously have a lot of work to do, they're going through the toughest stretches of their season right now. Whoever comes out on the other side of this looking the best probably wins the AFC South this year. So don't worry, I'll be paying attention to it. Colts, Rams, just keep winning, and then there will be absolutely no issue about it whatsoever from there. Jaxon Dart is the new starter in New York. I want to talk about how teams manage young quarterbacks because, that's something that the Colts tried to do. Didn't go very well. Yeah. So Nancy Leonard, by the way, she passed away. I meant to say that earlier. Just was a really big part of the Pacers. So very sad to hear that she passed away. When we come back, though, here in about 4 minutes, my thoughts on Jaxon Dart being the new starter in New York and just how teams go about managing young quarterbacks. And the one thing that bothers me about how they go about it.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X, _ Jonathan Smith, to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app. And I want to take a second to talk about Jaxon Dart and him being the new starter in New York. You know, if you didn't hear, Jaxon Dart has been named the starter for the Giants after 3 games of Russell Wilson. If you watched Russell Wilson last year, then this comes as no surprise. And I want to talk about this because of how the Colts handled and dealt with Anthony Richardson after they drafted him. Okay, like that was a big topic in the offseason. And maybe if they'd handled things a little bit differently, Anthony Richardson would be the starter this year. Right? Not saying that he would be, not saying that he wouldn't be. I don't know. Okay? And you know, people, I think, have really strong opinions on how young quarterbacks should be developed. And I don't. Like, I don't know if young quarterbacks should start right away. Like, there's evidence for that. There's evidence for sitting guys. There's evidence that if you sit guys for like 3 years, then they end up being really good. You know, and so like whatever your preference is, or whatever you want for your favorite team to do, there's evidence for it. Like if Giant fans wanted for Jaxon Dart to play right away, then they'll be like, oh, look at CJ Stroud and Jaden Daniels. They figured it out pretty quickly and they played immediately. And then, you know, all the Giant fans who wanted for Jaxon Dart to sit for a year, they're like, oh, Patrick Mahomes. You know, he sat for a year and now he's one of the best quarterbacks ever. You know, and then I'm sure there's some people that are like, look at the Packers. You know, they sat Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love each for 3 years, and that's turned out really, really well. You know, and then there's some people, you know, who are like, Jaxon Dart's probably not ready yet. And they're like, well, Josh Allen wasn't ready, and they played him immediately. And now he's, you know, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And then I'm sure there's other people that were like, well, look at Anthony Richardson. He played immediately. And now he's backing up Daniel Jones. You know, and so other people, I'm sure, like Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, and Daniel Jones all played immediately, and they didn't become good until they left the team that drafted them. Like there is clearly no set, surefire way to develop any quarterback in the NFL. I just think that teams should commit to a plan and stick to it. These NFL people, believe it or not, they are very, very smart. Smart enough to be able to look at their situation, know what's going to happen, and then prepare for it, and then roll with it. And when I say that these teams are smart and they should be able to look down the line and know what's going to happen, I don't mean that they should be able to look into a crystal ball and say, yes, this quarterback will be good or not, because obviously NFL teams can't do that. This is what I mean when I say that they should look down the line and know what's going to happen. My wife is a teacher, and we went out last night. We got dinner at Brewburger, great place, really good. And we were talking about just kind of this idea of being able to look down the line and know what's going to happen. And so my wife being a teacher, I asked her, I was like, look, on the first day of school, if you have 2 students walk in and they're clearly friends, they're laughing and talking and being loud and all that kind of stuff. When they walk into your classroom on the first day, I was like, would you sit them by one another? And she said no, because she knows that they'll be distracted by one another and they won't learn. If they're talking, then it'll impact all of the students around them as well. So she is able to look at 2 students and immediately know if they're going to be a problem based on like a 30-second interaction. The Giants with Brian Daboll They knew that Jaxon Dart was going to start at some point during the season because they've seen Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston bounce around the NFL for the past few years, and they've watched them struggle. Okay? The Giants should have known that Jaxon Dart was going to be called for this year. That's the reality of it. Okay? And I highly doubt that the Giants' plan this year was for Jaxon Dart to sit for 3 measly weeks and then insert him into the lineup as the starter. Like what has transpired, it's the most obvious thing to ever happen in the NFL. They should have just started him from the beginning if you were going to play him or start him in week 4. It was so obvious that they were going to end up here. So they should have just played him from the beginning. And if they did think that he wasn't ready this year and that he needed a year to sit, isn't that why you went and got Jameis Winston? Like what was the point in bringing in Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston if you were ultimately just going to play Jaxon Dart? Like, if you don't like how Russell Wilson's playing and you want to sit Jaxon Dart for a year, then just run Jameis Winston out there. Seems like a relatively simple thing. And that is the thing with the Colts that was going to be nice with Anthony Richardson his rookie year until he got hurt. It was pretty clear that they were going to let him grow through the mistakes that he made. Like I feel like that was pretty obvious. Like, he was the starter from week 1. Gardner Minshew wasn't going to play unless Anthony Richardson got hurt. He did, and obviously, it ended up being Minshew mania for that year. Okay, and then, year 2 comes around, same thing. The Colts are like, you're going to play. And, like, we're, trial by fire. Like, let's go. And so they let him do that for most of his second year as well. They obviously had to sit him down for 2 games so he could learn some lessons. Then they put him back in. So there's not a guaranteed way to develop any young quarterback because they're all different. I just think that these NFL teams need to stick to whatever their plan was or is. Okay, like, I know that Brian Dable is coaching for his job and the general manager is trying to keep his job too. And that's ultimately why they made the switch. Like, if Jaxon Dart's impressive, then they get to keep their jobs. Once again, wouldn't have mattered if they started him in week 4 or in week 1. I just don't understand why he didn't start from the jump, and he undoubtedly should have. It's week 4. Come on now. You sit here and tell me that all of a sudden, after sitting for 3 weeks behind Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, that Jaxon Dart is now just the epitome of knowledge on how to play quarterback? I don't really think so. To go back to the Colts, C. Fitch asking an interesting question over on X. If you go over to, your preferred gambling site of choice, you can get the Colts right now over 10.5 wins at plus money, it appears. The screenshot that C. Fitch sent me has them at plus 115. Okay. So it's a really simple question. Can the Colts win 8 more games? They could. Are they going to? I don't know. That's kind of the issue with gambling. No one really knows. Here's what I'll say. I don't think that they're going to win on Sunday. I don't. I think it's tough to go on the road and win, especially when you're playing against a good team like the Los Angeles Rams are. I understand that Daniel Jones is having a really good start to the year, but I do think that everyone would agree that the Rams have the better quarterback in this game. It's just the reality of it. What's the line for this game? I'm kind of curious. I haven't seen it, but the Colts are undoubtedly going to be underdogs, probably like 4.5 points. If I had to take a guess at it, let's see here. They are 3.5 point dogs on the road against the Rams. So I don't think that they win that game. The winnable games on their schedule or the Raiders, the Cardinals. If the Chargers stay healthy, they're not winning that game on the road. They should beat the Titans again at home. At Pittsburgh's winnable. Like the Steelers are 2-1. But it's kind of like Jacksonville, where it's not like a super impressive 2-1, if you know what I mean. So that game's winnable. Atlanta and Germany is winnable. Week 12, they've got Kansas City. By that point, they'll have Rashee Rice. They'll have Xavier Worthy, probably healthy. They're not beating the Chiefs in Kansas City. I think that's a tall order. They can beat Houston at home. They can beat Jacksonville on the road. The Seahawks look awesome to start the year. That road game is going to be tough. San Francisco is probably going to have the majority of their players in the ICU by week 16. That game's very winnable. Jacksonville at home is winnable. At Houston is winnable. So they've got what I think to be 10 very winnable games left for the Colts. So, yeah, sure, Steve Fitch, if you want to put a little bit of scratch out there on, the Colts getting to 11 wins on the season, I think that's very, very possible. 13 is very, very possible as well. We'll kind of see what ends up happening, this week against the Rams. But if they win this week, then 13 wins is most definitely very, very possible for them going forward. So we'll see. The schedule's not great, or the schedule is great because it's not filled with that many great opponents. But I think really going forward, you could make a real argument that at the Rams is the Colts' toughest game remaining. It's either at the Rams, at the Chargers, or at the Chiefs. Every other game should be a step down from that. But I'm excited to watch this Colts team go out there and, try to pick up another win on the road. Vibes are high right now. I think they're going to give the Rams a really tough game. I've still got questions about the defense. Like the Colts are still yet to play a team that is just fully committed to trying to run the football. Obviously, the Titans and the Dolphins couldn't do that because they were down by so much. The Rams only gave their best running back 14 carries. This week when they go on the road to play the Rams, the Rams will have no issue handing the football off to Kyren Williams 20 times, one of the best running backs in football. And if he gets tired, they've trusted Blake Corum a little bit more this year than what they did last year in his rookie season. So I think we're going to see a lot of Kyren Williams running the football at this Colts team. We'll kind of see how it goes for him, but I don't have a ton of faith in this Colts run defense, and I do think that that's going to be problematic for them as the year goes on. So we'll see. Someone compared this IU and Colts game. Oh my gosh. This Colts and Rams game to IU playing Illinois, as in this is kind of the first real test. I think Denver's pretty good. When they won that game, it's all right, the Colts aren't going to be terrible. But if they win this game, then we can kind of start talking a little bit bigger than just the Colts making the playoffs and maybe winning a wild card round game against, whoever else it ends up being. So we'll see. Very excited to watch the Colts on Sunday. Very excited to watch IU on Saturday. Speaking of IU, Fernando Mendoza, plus 800 to win the Heisman. I don't think it's going to happen. Sorry. I hate to be a buzzkill, but that's how I feel. I'll tell you why in 4 minutes.
it may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can get wherever you download your apps, or 1430 AM. Thank you, no matter how you're tuning in. It's always greatly appreciated. We got a little update on Colts injuries from Shane Steichen. Alec Pierce in the concussion protocol will not practice today. Kenny Moore, here's the concerning stuff. The Alec Pierce stuff is not surprising. Kenny Moore, his injury is apparently more in his Achilles area than his calf area. Still no discussion, though, for him to go on IR. It's not good. Not good at all. So I just, man, that's not good, because like it's so, like, the injury thing for the Colts, it's only hit the secondary, right? Like, they had a bunch of guys hurt in training camp. Charvarius Ward has already missed a game. They had to go make a trade for, the Blackman kid from Minnesota, gave up a 6th-round pick for him. And, it's just like that. It's not been good. It's been really, really problematic. Just that entire cornerback room. And Kenny Moore is a guy who's having a really good year. I think one of the more underrated parts of his game that's really important is his ability to tackle. Like, he was a sure tackler, and you don't always get that from your corners. And so, like, I know that they, signed Mike Helton, or whatever his name was, the guy who played for Coach Anarumo last year. And, he, is probably going to be the fill-in to play slot corner. We'll kind of see how it ends up going, but it's really hard. It's just a really tough week for this to happen. It's tough to buy in to this idea of the Colts being able to go on the road to beat this Rams team when they don't have a guy in Kenny Moore who is so incredibly important to their success. Like, he's been arguably the best nickel corner in the NFL for several years now. And to not have him when you're going to play Sean McVay, one of the smartest offensive minds in all of football, that's a really, really tall order to have to kind of deal with. And I mean, look, the Colts can definitely do it. They're very talented and all those things, right? The spot where they run into trouble is just the injuries. And that's something that can cost you, right? Like, I say it all the time, like, the best team in the NFL doesn't win, the healthiest team does. And that's not just a reality in the NFL. That's just a very simple reality within sports itself. The healthier you are, the better chance you have at winning. And, like, the Colts secondary room, not a ton of depth. So missing him, kind of problematic. Very, very problematic. So with that being said, like, Lou Anarumo, this is the other nice thing about him. Because he adjusts his scheme, he's going to do things to kind of help with the absence of Kenny Moore, no matter how long he's gone. That was part of the issue with Gus Bradley. Like, if someone got hurt, then it's just like, all right, we're going to run the same scheme with players that aren't as good. Whereas now, with Lou Anarumo, compared to Gus Bradley, I'm sure that he's got different ways to tweak, coverage and scheme or whatever it is to help kind of cover up the areas where the Colts are a little bit banged up. Maybe they blitz more, knowing that they have a nickel corner who's not going to be able to cover for as long as Kenny Moore could. Maybe they play more coverage and they try to help him a little bit. I don't know. But having a defensive coordinator like Lou Anarumo be able to come in and be like, hey, look, like not a big deal. We can just tweak this part of the defense and we'll be better off for it. Even if we don't have this player, it can be, Kenny Moore, Travarius Ward, whoever. Like that is a really nice thing for the Indianapolis Colts to have right now. And that's one of the aspects of coaching that I think is undervalued. We get caught up in play calls and how often guys blitz and how often they play coverage and all those things. And those things are obviously really important, but how do you adjust when you have players out, especially in football? Because it happens to every team every single year. Guys just get hurt because football is a very physical game that, the human body was not built to withstand, even with pads on, clearly. So you have to have coaches who are capable of adapting whatever it is that they want to do to, the personnel that they have week in and week out, because it changes. That is something that I've always thought helped John Harbaugh be a head coach in Baltimore. For those who don't know, John Harbaugh was a special teams coordinator before he became a head coach. And with special teams, guys get pulled away all the time. Happens all the time. It's like, hey, this linebacker or this, I don't know, this corner, he's hurt this week, so and so can't be your gunner this week. Sorry. And then you just got to go find another gunner. Like that's just kind of the reality of it. And so the coaches who are adaptable and are willing to adjust whatever it is that they're doing based on the players available, those are the ones that tend to have a little bit more success. And we're going to get to see Lou Anarumo do that this week because he's probably not going to have Kenny Moore. And someone else is probably going to get hurt during the game. And they're going to have to find a way to adapt and survive. Speaking of adapting, Coach Cignetti adapted to college football very quickly. And now Indiana has become, they're one of the 12 best teams in the country again this year. And they're better than they were last year. And a large part of that has to do with Fernando Mendoza, who's currently the Heisman favorite at plus 850. He dropped a little bit. Dante Moore of Oregon, plus 1,100, is behind him. I don't think that he's going to win the Heisman. It's a long year. They've played one good opponent. They've got to find a way to beat Oregon or Penn State. Very possible to beat one. Going to be really tough. It's very possible for them to win one. It's going to be tough for them to win one. But, this Indiana team, I do think is capable of it. And, yeah, this Indiana team, I'm really excited to watch them play on Saturday against Iowa. Because at a minimum, that Iowa's defense is going to be good. That Iowa's defense is going to make it tough for Indiana to throw the football. I just want to see them get tested. And that's not a fair thing for me to say after they just beat a team that was ranked 9th, but is clearly not the 9th best team in the country. After they just beat them 63, my bad, 63-10. I want to see them struggle and have to figure out a way to win because we didn't really see that from them last year. They cruised or got crushed in every game but one, to their credit, at home against Michigan. That game was a bit of a dogfight, and they ended up finding a way to come out on top and win. I want to see what they look like this year because it's a lot of different players. It is. They brought back 7, it's either 7 or 8 starters from last year. Everyone else is new. And they look like they're better because sometimes new does mean better. The new quarterback looks better than Curtis Rourke, and that is no disrespect to Curtis Rourke, but there's a reason why he was a 6th-round pick, and Fernando Mendoza is the favorite to win the Heisman and might be a 1st-round pick. There's a reason for that. There's new running backs. Elijah Surratt is obviously back. But there's, a new number 2 receiver. Love Omar Cooper. That dude's such a freaking stud. Love him. Okay, so like there's a lot to like about this Indiana team early. I just want to see them be tested. What do they look like when, there's 2.5 minutes left and they're only up by 3 and they've got to run the football and everyone knows that they're running the football to close it out? What does Fernando Mendoza look like when they're down by 4 and they're, and it's, there's 90 seconds left in the half and they really need to score because the opposing team is going to get the football to start the second half? And what does Fernando Mendoza and this Indiana football team look like in that spot? Like that is what I want to know about them. And actually, no, I don't want to know that about them. I hope they beat everybody 63-10. Okay, like that would be lovely. You'd save a bunch of time. You could just turn all the games off at halftime because it's so clearly over. But on a more serious note, Indiana is going to be tested at some point this season. Do I think it'll be this week? No, I don't. But they will definitely be tested against Oregon. And that game that's really the game that's going to tell us quite a bit about them. But I do think that Iowa's defense is going to be a nice way for us to kind of take a peek at how good or bad this Indiana offense is, how good is, Fernando Mendoza and all that kind of stuff. So very excited about it. Football in the state of Indiana has never been better. Just hasn't. All right. Notre Dame, they're probably going to win out. They're going to crush Arkansas on Saturday. It's going to be no fun for me. Indiana, currently a 7.5-point favorite on the road against Iowa. They should cruise in that game. Colts Sunday against the Rams is just going to be a blast. Like covering good football teams is so much fun. And do I still have questions? Absolutely, because I'm always going to have questions. That's just kind of accepted that's who I am. Like, will the Colts figure out how to stop the run? Indiana, actually, I don't have any questions about them right now. They look awesome. Okay. Actually, that's not true. How do they stack up against the highest level of college football, the Oregons and the Ohio States and Penn State this year and the Georgias? How do they stack up against them? Because I don't think that there's a question that they're a top 12 team. But college football is weird. Like the gap between the best team in the country and the 12th best team in the country is a very, very wide margin. The gap between the best team in the country and the 6th best team in the country is oftentimes a very, very wide margin. It's why I was against expanding the playoff to 12 teams because, the gap, I mean, we saw it last year. Like if you go back to the scores last year, like, oh my gosh, in the scores last year and like in the first round of the playoff, like SMU got dusted by Penn State. Like that game was never even close. Never even close. And I'm trying to think back on the other college football playoff games. The majority of Ohio State crushed Tennessee last year. I mean, like they did. Like the game wasn't really close. Notre Dame crushed Indiana last year. The gap between the upper echelon of college football or the highest level of college football and even that second tier is really wide. I thought Indiana deserved to be in the playoff last year, but they were clearly a second tier college football team. It's the reality of it. Also, Penn State, when they played Boise State, dogged them. Okay, Ohio State, when they played Oregon, dogged them. Beat them by 20. And it wasn't even that close. And so I just kind of want to see when they play Oregon, when they play Penn State, how much has Indiana kind of narrowed that gap between being a second-tier college football team and being a part of that elite class with the Ohio States and Georgias and Oregons of the world. So we're going to find out a little bit more on Saturday about Indiana. We're going to find out a lot about the Colts on Sunday. I'm going to keep talking about it as the week progresses. Make sure you subscribe to the Indy Sports Ticket YouTube page. If you want more from me, you can go check out the My Take Is YouTube page. You can follow me on X as well, __ Jonathan Smith. Football season. We love it. It is a blast. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way next. Should be a great, great show. Talking a little baseball. The Colts and Indiana conversations will continue as well. I'll be back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon. I'll talk to you then.